Not having you guess what the next line is. All right, we're live.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Today is February 16th, 2023. It's 9 a.m. and this is the meeting of Senate Natural Resources and Energy. We continue our work on S5, the Affordable Heat Act. We're going to be going through next draft of the bill, which is draft 4.1. And we're waiting for council to arrive, which should be momentarily. Meanwhile, I wanted to distribute to the committee, and will also be on our posted to our website before we're done for the morning. Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility wrote a letter to the committee as a way of submitting testimony, and, as have others that we've been receiving and posting along the way. And I guess as a general remark, just to remind people who are watching, if you are interested in speaking with the committee, but not necessarily, you haven't scheduled yourself in the last 7 weeks, that is fine. Another way to speak to us is to send the committee written testimony. It gets copied and distributed to every member of the committee, and also gets posted to our website. So if you send that to Ms. Newman, that is the best way to get an orderly submission to all of us. So thank you for that. And the draft that we'll be going over, which is also on our website, is draft number 4.1 of S5. It's time and date stamped 2/15/2023, 8:03 p.m. And when council arrives, we'll begin our walkthrough of the draft. And and just in terms of talking about the agenda for the balance of the week, we are closing in on a clean draft that we are still on track. I think we are to have a version of bill ready for a committee vote by tomorrow. I don't think we'll get there today because we have a short morning. We're only here until 10:25, which point we have to leave for a joint assembly. But I think we'll have enough time at least to complete the walkthrough of if people have edits. Some of those we can catch live while we're going through them today. If it's anything more complex than a small edit, I would ask that any member of the committee sit down with legislative counsel and have that language drafted so that we have language that's really ready to go and ready for consideration and ready for possible insertion. The committee thinks that it wants to adopt that language.
She's on the last section of the draft. We'll be here in 2 minutes.
Okay. We're in.
I know, I told them we were waiting.
I don't mind a minute to just look through the new copy.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Rather than trying to
let's-
multitask.
Yeah.
Is new language highlighted?
Yes.
Thanks. Right.
We
So.
always said that.
Yeah, for anyone who's looking at the online version and for us here, we're continuing the tradition. Any change from the last rev of the last draft, which was 2.1, is highlighted in yellow.
Is this what we did yesterday?
Yes. Yep. So thank Senator McConnell, thanks for that question. So one thing that we flagged yesterday that we didn't have, wasn't resolved because we didn't have language based on conversations with all the parties we were talking about how we might revise the process before the PUC. And so I worked with, on behalf of the committee, after committee time, to get ideas from people, get that drafted, and work with Mr. Kowski last evening to have that written up and brought to the bill. So that language would be new or new-ish. The rest, I think, will be more familiar. I know the other thing too was, as we changed, as the bill has evolved, the council said, you know, it would make, at this point, we've shifted the balance between parts and stuff like that. She said it would make sense from a drafting point of view to change the structure of it a little, so not so much content, but moving some things around, how they're defined and by section or subsections. The other thing I did is I followed up with all the things that we had questions with. So I have since followed up, including sending this draft, which I got last night, sent it off last night to the PUC, to the Equity Office, to Ms. Collins, who's providing us with feedback on housing, so that they would all see it ahead of time. And I've asked them to please send the committee a memo today, please, if they had any, they saw further edits, questions, concerns, etc., so that we would have them today and be in a position to include them in a possible change for tomorrow. And the copy that I hope we will include is ready for prime time.
She's on her way.
Good morning.
We're reading your fine handiwork.
Going to say, I hope you've made good use of the
We've
time.
been studying.
You're uninterrupted, multitasking.
I don't think we're ready for a quiz, but we've been studying. And so I introduced the draft, et cetera. Thank you. And with that, we have about an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Guessing that's enough just to do another walkthrough. So with that, Ms. Kowski, good morning. Thank you for another evening of diligence and bringing us draft 4.1. And I guess what makes sense is really to walk through at this point the highlights. So for the, and if people have things beyond the highlights that you want to bring up, let's first do the highlights and see if we can resolve all those, get them checked off or addressed at least. And then we can move on to anything that we haven't yet nailed down.
Okay,
How's that sound? Okay, so
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. We're looking at draft 4.1 from last night. So there's a couple of things that are happening here in addition to what the changes you requested yesterday. The biggest change is that I moved the DDA into its own section, and I pulled the pieces regarding the DDA from other parts of the statute into that. And so they are, some of them aren't highlighted because it's the same language, but it's just been moved to one place. And then I also did the same thing with the rulemaking section, the statutory, I gave it a statutory rulemaking section. So that hopefully the whole chapter flows better. And then also, I think the chair requested a change that we'll talk about regarding DDA. So the first change is on page 4. On page 4, this is 8122, which is one of the first sections of the chapter, and it lays out the primary elements of the program. There, I bolded subsections C and D to indicate that language that was in those subsections previously has been moved. I struck through one of the paragraphs, subparagraph 2, because it's being deleted entirely, but the other language that was there has been moved to the DDA section and the rulemaking section respectively. But there is a new sentence on page 4, line 5, but I'm gonna read the whole paragraph because I think it sort of helps. The obligated party may obtain the required amounts of clean heat credits through the delivery of eligible clean heat measures, through contracts for delivery of eligible clean heat measures, through the market purchase of clean heat credits, or through the delivery of eligible clean heat measures by a designated statewide default delivery agent. An obligated party shall inform the commission of how it plans to meet its obligation through the process described in section 8125 of this title. And so that is the new DDA section that I added. And in it, it does reference how a obligated party is going to describe to the commission, give them a heads up of how they plan to meet their obligation.
So my ignorance, you keep saying DDA.
The designated default delivery agent.
Forgetting about delivery. I keep wanting it to be 2 days.
Oh, okay, well, it could be designated, it could be triple DA, but it's, yeah. It is the DDA which is designated, but.
It's a wide feet.
And then subsection D, this was existing language. The commission shall adopt rules and issue orders to implement and enforce the Clean Heat Standard program. There was additional language on how they would do that, and that language has been given its own rulemaking section later on.
thank you.
So the next section is on page 8. The next change is on page 8. So a small change, the commission may temporarily, for a period not to exceed 18 months, adjust the credit requirements for good cause.
Okay. And just procedurally, so I'm gonna say okay or next or thank you as like we're going on. If people have a concern, flag me down. Otherwise, I'm gonna be asking, is that okay? Is that okay for single word phrase changes all the way through?
Which was maybe temporarily.
The annual requirements, which sets the emission reduction requirements. So the percentage of reductions each obligated party must obtain.
Now that, isn't that, Mr. Chair, similar to the PUC makes recommendations on efficiency charges and money each year for the following year?
No, I don't think so. That is addressed, that type of system is addressed later with, specifically with the DDA, about setting the budget and how to achieve these things. But this first part is about setting the amount of emissions reductions that are required in order to meet the Global Warming Solutions Act.
Rephrase my question. In our efficiency program, each year changes are made, and the PUC recommends or orders those changes based on a criteria that gives them, or they do the computations and the analysis, but directs them to do something that's rather specific. They don't go out and dream up new things to do. They adjust within the parameters that the law calls for. Here, in this, what are the parameters that the commission has to operate within when they change things?
So I do think this is slightly different because this part of the program I see closer to the RES program where there's a statutory requirement and then other programs have to flow from that. And so this statutory provision is that emission reductions have to be set at a level to meet the Global Warming Solutions Act requirement. This is like the release valve that if they're going to make a change from that specific number, there has to be good cause. So there's good cause with notice and opportunity for public process, and good cause includes shortage of clean heat credits or undue adverse financial impacts. And they further have to ensure that a downward adjustment still will allow the system to meet the Global Warming Solutions Act.
Undue adverse financial impacts. The rent's too damn high. Is that? Who decides what's undue?
Well, the commission will be.
With, I mean, there is a public process. The legislature always has its own toolkit for defining things statutorily. I mean, the notion here was that the council called it a relief valve. So there could be things that would happen that we want them to be able to take into consideration and make adjustments for.
But also that you have affirmed in line 3 that they have to be temporary.
Right.
So this section has a lot of elements to it.
There's a good cause after notice and comment, public process, there's, I said comment, notice and opportunity for public process. Then there's also the final sentence, which says, if you've made such an adjustment, you still need to be operating a program that meets the requirements of NBSA 578.82, the reduction targets requirements.
But they find that the law that calls for this is causing undue adverse impacts. Are their hands tied, or do they change the law. I mean, they have the effect to change the law.
I would say they're not changing the law. One of their work products is specifying the number of heating credits that have to be earned in order to try to meet those targets. So they're allowed to adjust the number of credits required in a year based on what we're anticipating, which is, I guess this, you might call this like a prudency provision. We don't know for sure what will happen. One of the other things we talked about is what if there was a recession or what if a second version of COVID came back and there was massive disruption of supply chains and workforce. We want to have some provision that allows them to adjust the credit requirements, but within the last sentence there that says any downward adjustment does not materially affect the state's ability to comply with the law as specified in 578.
This section really is like a tug of war balancing section. Because it balances concern over the need to prevent undue adverse financial impacts, but also to still be on track to meet the state's reduction requirements.
So Senator McDonald, would you like to flag this for further
No,
discussion?
it goes back to the heart of, who we are as representative democracy. And when people are gonna come with pitchforks or might come with pitchforks, are we sending them to PUCs? So, or are we gonna, or are they gonna come to us?
Well, I think ultimately the whole program belongs to us. We're asking for it. We're getting guidance on how to operate it. So I hope that people with pitchforks will come to us. Right. I don't know that we're gonna see that. So,
Well, this is a vision in case it happens.
right. I still think of it as
They don't have pitchfork day here.
I still think of it as a prudent.
Which section should that be?
A prudency provision, yes. Okay, so let's, if you want to come back to it, we'll come back to it. Let's continue our walkthrough.
We'll have to come back to it because it's always there. Okay.
So the next change is on page 9. Subdivision 3A. The Department of Taxes shall annually provide to the commission a copy of the forms that were submitted by the entities that pay the existing fuel tax established in 33-2503 to the commission.
Remember, McDonald, you were the one who flagged that. Make
Oh,
it
yeah,
look
established
clear.
in what year? Established in 19, whatever.
1905. I don't know the year, first year we did that. But we could have that information, not in the bill, but at our fingertips. Okay, thank you. What's next?
Small grammar change on line 18. This was, I'm suggesting this for readability. The Department of Taxes shall ensure that the fuel tax form required under 33 VSA 2503 includes a prominent notice explaining that pursuant to this section, etc. It just read a little awkward to me, so.
Author's discretion. Thank you.
Not a substantive change. So the next change is on page 12. So subsection 4, with consideration to how to best serve customers with low income and moderate income, the commission shall have the authority to change the percentages established in subdivision 2 for good cause after consultation with the equity advisory group, notice and opportunity for public process. So the next new language is on page 15. So page 15 adds a new section 8125, which is the default delivery agent section. It's been given its own section from existing language that was already in the bill, but pulled into one area so that it's easy to know every element of the default delivery agent. So this shouldn't be a review, but I hope, I'm gonna read through it just so that we make sure it flows logically.
Okay.
So the default delivery agent designated in place of obligated party specific programs, on line 12 of page 15. The commission shall provide for the development and implementation of statewide clean heat programs and measures by one or more default delivery agents appointed by the commission for these purposes. The commission may specify that appointment of a default delivery agent to deliver clean heat services on behalf of obligated parties who pay the per credit fee to the default delivery agent satisfies those entities' corresponding obligations under this chapter. Appointment. The default delivery agent shall be one or more statewide entities capable of providing a variety of clean heat measures. The designation of an entity under this subdivision may be by order of appointment or contract. A designation, whether by order of appointment or by contract, may only be issued after notice and opportunity for hearing. An existing order of appointment issued by the commission under section 209 of this title may be amended to include the responsibilities of the default delivery agent. So that sentence is new. It was requested by the chair.
Yes, so this was an sort of efficient administration provision. And that is, we already have, under 209, we already have an energy efficiency utility. It may be that they become the DBA. So for the sake of, I'm presuming that will happen, there's a very public process, bid, et cetera, that goes on, that gets described in the bill. But the fact is that Efficiency Vermont conceivably could be named such an entity. So rather than have them have a completely parallel universe, like another whole rule order commission on its own, the idea here, which they supported, was that you might amend their current existing order of appointment to include the new provisions and obligations of the DDA. So it's really an administrative, there's no, again, no presumption that they would be so named, but if they were, that it could be incorporated into it through an amendment rather than an entirely separate.
I smell something that's burning.
Yeah, Tom just came out and asked about that too in the hallway, so it's not just our room.
Okay.
I have no sense of smell,
So
so
we're all going.
no. Sorry about that. I
Is
will
it
go.
worse in the hallway?
Supposedly it's worse than transportation. Really?
No, burning. Yeah, so.
I'll let
Talk to Janet.
Do you think it's,
Yours exits that way.
oh, yeah.
And it's warm out.
Wait, I was gonna say, it's coming through some kind of.
Yeah.
There's, that's for outside. So,
Right, well, let's hope it stops. Electrical.
Yeah, it smells like burning.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Burning insulation.
Well,
What would you like me to do?
I think if we just, for the moment, close the door.
Close the door.
We're going down with the ship.
Is anyone feeling like they would like to vacate this room? If not, I think we'll just keep reading for a little while. If things get worse, we'll respond. Otherwise,
I don't know where we would go.
well, I think
Would you like me to keep the door open to see if there's more movement on
sure,
this?
sure. Let's let more fresh air in. We have our, we're running. Maybe that will, but
Oh, it's getting stronger.
It seems like the Capitol Police and the Sergeant Arms are
Meaning what?
meeting. They're all circling and looking for
Oh.
anything that's on fire.
how much you go to the cellar? Okay. All right, so let's read on. If it gets uncomfortable, speak up. We'll move.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm having trouble following it when we discuss it. Go back to read where we're reading from. I'm sitting here looking to see where other people.
We are currently on page 16. Lines.
I'm just keeping up with what's being discussed
Okay,
without identification of page and line, so I can know where to start and follow the language up. Chasing from behind.
we are currently, thank you for that. Others at home might be wondering too, so we'll just say it again. We are on page 16, lines 3 through 5, the new sentence about the letter of appointment. And it's really sort of an administrative amendment to just say, oh, a letter of appointment can be amended as opposed to you must issue one from scratch.
Thank you.
And that takes us to page 17.
Yeah,
line- Oh, you were gonna read through.
Well, I was gonna read through, I was also just gonna add, there are 2 other efficiency utilities.
Yes.
They are Burlington Electric and Vermont Gas Systems, and so there are
Right.
multiple existing orders potentially that could be amended related to the DDA, so it's, yes.
Yes, thanks for that correction, because I just fall into referring to the biggest one and forgetting there's 2 others.
So I was gonna continue reading to help for flow. So on page 16, starting on line 5, an order of appointment shall be for a limited duration, not to exceed 12 years, although an entity may be reappointed by order or contract. An order of appointment may include any conditions and requirements that the commission deems appropriate to promote the public good. For good cause, after notice and opportunity for hearing, the commission may amend or revoke an order of appointment. Supervision. An entity appointed by order of appointment under this section shall not be that is not an electric or gas utility already regulated under this title, shall not be considered to be a company as defined in 201 of this title, but shall be subject to the following provisions: 18 through 21, 30 through 32, 205 to 208, subsection 209A, 19, 2098, 219, 221, 231B, to the same extent as a company as defined in 201. So I know that that was a lot of numbers, but this section is referring to the fact that currently under Title 30, the PUC regulates companies that are public service companies, which generally relates to utilities, although it is broader than that. And under that regulation, they have very broad authority over the operations of the company. And so this is saying that a DDA is not going to be a public service company subject to all of the PUC's authority, but they will be governed by the following provisions. And I can read them out to you if you'd like, but this is giving the PUC authority to investigate and have access to the books and the operations of the company.
And the underlying model, correct, is the language for our current electrical energy efficiency utilities, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is very it's pretty similar to what is for Efficiency Vermont specifically, because Burlington Electric and BGS are already regulated wholly as public service companies.
Because they are monopolies.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, I know it's smelly in here, so if people want to leave, we can figure out something. I don't know if it's getting worse or getting better.
I am getting a bit of a headache, to be honest.
Yeah, I would like, so I would love to just say, I'm good with all of this. I've read through it. There's a couple places that I would like, that I had edits that I would be like, I would love to just amend like a little bit, but.
Alright, so but in using the tedious metaphor of painting ourselves out of the room, what I'd love to do is go through all the highlights and we basically approve them, and then we double back and say, okay, so the next draft, if there are additional changes, we'll only have the additional changes as new highlights in a draft 5.1, and that'll make it easy for us to see what needs reviewed tomorrow. So that's like the method here. But this room does stink, and the problem is if we move, we need to be a public meeting, and I don't know where we can move that we can set up a public meeting.
Maybe we could take like a 10-minute break
assess what some of our options are, reconvene, and then go from there.
Sure, let's reconvene it.